Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce Mansfield Selectmen Meet the Candidate Forum. I'm Kara Griffin. I'm the Executive Director of the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce, and we're here this evening with 4 of the candidates for the open seat for Selectmen. Just wanted to go over some rules before we meet the candidates. The structure this evening has already been set. I will be reading a short bio from each of our 4 candidates. We have some questions that have been prepared by members of the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce. Each candidate will have approximately 2 minutes, which will be timed by myself, to answer each question. Each candidate will have a turn answering each question first, which has been determined by the old schoolhouse pick with numbers. The rules of the evening: we will have no cameras during the debate, only before and after, no campaign signs in the room, and no supporters present. We just want this to be a relaxed environment for you, the voters, to meet the candidates. After the questions have been completed, each candidate will have an opportunity to do a 2-minute on their closing statements about why they feel they are the best candidate for a Mansfield Selectman. There are no rebuttals to an opponent's closing statement. The moderator's decision and rules on time and decorum stand. Members of this panel were determined by the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce, and I wanted to introduce you to those panelists right now. We have Danielle Fish, who is a board member of the Chamber and also the Economic Development Chair. She's also from the Sage School. We also have Dave Luongo, who works for BSE Print Solutions here in Mansfield. So those are the rules, and I think these rules were all stated prior to getting the candidates to agree to come this evening. Now I just wanted to go over and just do a brief bio of each candidate. Neil Rhine. Neil and his wife Teresa moved to Mansfield in 1995. Their 2 daughters attended Mansfield Public Schools and are both now attending college. Neil is the founder and president of Bullseye Communications and the founder and former executive director of Keep Mansfield Beautiful. He is also the founder and executive director of Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, a nonprofit that helps communities across the state clean up and beautify their towns. Last June, the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation honored Neil with their 2017 Myra Craft Community MVP. Congratulations, Neil.
Thank you.
We have Alan Breyer with us. Mr. Breyer has lived in Mansfield for 24 years and is running because he is deeply concerned about the town's future. His 2 biggest areas of concern are the general state of democracy in Mansfield and what he perceives as a failure to pursue best planning practices. David Martin. David is an attorney and executive director of the Massachusetts Health Council. His wife, Christy, is also an attorney, and they moved to Mansfield in 2001 from South Boston and have 3 girls, Paulina, Audrey, and Kate. Paulina is a freshman at Holy Cross College in Worcester, Audrey is a senior at Mansfield High School, and Kate is an 8th grader at Qualters Middle School. He currently serves on the Mansfield Industrial Development Commission and previously served on the Mansfield Historic Commission. He's a volunteer attorney coach for the high school mock trial team, and he is a member of the Finance and Operations Committee of our local hospital, Sturdy Memorial. Thanks for being here. Olivia Kozlowski. Olivier has served 2 terms on the Board of Selectmen, has served on multiple town boards and committees for the past 20 years. He currently volunteers with Mansfield Emergency Management Agency and serves on the Housing Authority and Board of Registrars of Voters. Olivier has been a practicing attorney for over 20 years and currently works for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Estate Recovery Unit. Olivier and his wife Laura moved to Mansfield in 1993 and are raising 2 children, Jordan 18 and Alex 12. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to turn this over to our panelists to ask discussions, and we are going to actually start with Neil first. So,
All right, this has to do with the tax rate.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen recently increased the tax split between homeowners and business 1.27%. Homeowners will pay an average increase of $450 more in the next tax bill. How do you feel about the increase on business and even more so the increase on household and residents? There's a little more to this. Do you agree with the tax increases and the increased split between residential and commercial? And as a selectman, what would you do to address concerns among residents on the increase, or do you propose other ways to address the town budget?
Okay, everyone's favorite topic, property taxes. So, yeah, obviously, no one likes to see their tax bill go up, whether you're a homeowner or a business owner. I watched the debate this year about the split on the tax rate. And I know that if they left it as is, which is 1.25% for businesses, the average homeowner would have seen an increase of about, I think it was about 9%. By adjusting that up slightly, it reduced the increase to about 7%, which is still sizable, I think. From the business end, obviously, they don't want to see their taxes go up. However, I feel like that was a reasonable compromise given the situation we were in. Obviously, businesses, like I said, they don't want to see the rates go up, but I don't think a small increase like that's going to drive anybody out of town immediately. However, if we continue down that path, then I think we could be in danger of seeing businesses either leave Mansfield or not want to come here when they look at what it costs to do business here. So we have to be careful of that. And really the solution to it is to grow the tax base. So attracting new businesses, I'm sure there'll be other questions about this, but you know, the idea of we need to get more large employers into the business park, more businesses into our downtown, and you know, so to speak, grow the pie. And that's really the long-term solution. You know, if we don't do that, we don't invest in the business park, we could see an exodus and more trouble down the road. I know that last year Covidian moved out, they moved to Framingham. I'm not sure that was due to the taxes, but we have to keep a close eye on that and make sure we're attracting taxes and businesses to our town.
Great. So thanks for the question. I attended that Board of Selectmen meeting where they made the decision on the split tax rate. It was the Finance Committee also attended. That's a nice thing to see, actually. One of the great things that's happening in town is we do have a lot of, the board is working well with the Finance Committee and the School Committee, and there's a lot of collaboration going on right now, and I think that's really important to see. There have been times in the history of Mansfield when we haven't seen that kind of collaboration, so I applaud the Finance Committee for being there. They made very cogent arguments about why the Finance Committee did not think that this split tax rate should go up for commercial properties. Totally understandable. I do think ultimately the board made the right decision that you know, the residential taxes were going to go up disproportionate because of the rise in home values, and that split tax rate makes it possible to keep those a little bit lower. Certainly, the residents appreciate that. I absolutely share the concern that as you raise taxes on commercial rates, that you're in danger of driving business out of Mansfield. But you know, you're trying to find that balance. It really does come back to one, when you authorize spending, and you know, if you're going to authorize the spending, then you're going to have to find a way to pay for it. So be careful about what you authorize. And two, really growing that pie. And the industrial park is a perfect place to start, as well as Main Street. One of the things that I've learned as being a member of the Industrial Development Commission is, you know, we are facing some serious problems if we can't pull business back into the industrial park. And I worry that a lot of the companies that used to like suburban industrial parks are actually going back to cities now. And so we have to find some ways to reinvent this so we can pull business back into the industrial park. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, as a former selectman, I've had the benefit or the curse of having to deal with this before, and the arguments are the same every year. You know, the only thing, and I've said this before, the only thing that actually has a sort of a rational basis argument to me is a unified tax rate, because you know it treats everybody the same. But if we were to actually try and do that today, people would be out with pitchforks, and justifiably so. Where we are right now is not something that we can move to that sort of a unified tax rate. So what we need to, obviously it's been said before, we need to make sure that we question all of the spending. We need to make sure that we bring new businesses to the town. And as a board, specifically to the question, every year the board gets the spreadsheet. It's a two-axis grid, and it's got, on one side, it's got a sample of residential properties, generally the board. and a sample of commercial properties. And on the other axis is the current split and what the effect of a penny either way, 2 pennies either way, and so forth. And what you do, you really have to sort of look, and I think the board did this time around, is sort of look and try and spread the pain around and sort of make it fair for everybody. Now, that's not something that a prospective business is looking for. It's because it's effectively saying, trust us, we're not going to get too crazy. But there's really no response. There's really no way to do that in a logical method. You have to look at it on a case-by-case basis annually and come up with the best solution.
Unfortunately, for municipalities, taxes are our lifeblood. We need the revenue. And there are better solutions, hopefully, down the road. I think the good news to put out to people is that this is 1 year. We adjusted the rate this year. And hopefully this doesn't represent a negative trend coming on, because that's something businesses especially don't want to see. If the trend is always up, 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 that's what's going to scare people away. As far as the growth, I'd like to see us to have a focus on the density. If we can get some tax density, which is all the rage in a lot of other communities, that will actually help. All in all, I believe the modest increase should be acceptable to all. We also have to keep in mind that our tax bills have the first installment of our 30-year debt exclusion in it. But this is something, and I view this as an opportunity where both businesses and residential and the government can look at this and say, we're in this as a community, and where are we going to go in the future? And I hope that's what we can take out of this.
Great. All right. So question number 2 has to do with the downtown. David, we'll start with you. So Mansfield's downtown has long been a source of pride and frustration. It's rich with history, yet in need of an identity or some vision. The Downtown Business Association's efforts have nobly managed to keep this alive for some time and keeping residents visiting and engaged, right, the different events that happen downtown. Many residents have put forth some great ideas. However, much of its future remains in discussions and studies. We're continuing to look at it. Briefly, if you could share your vision for downtown and some ideas with specific details or items that could be implemented in the short term.
Sure, thank you. So downtown is a key part of our economic development. Downtowns are tough places for lots of towns like Mansfield these days. The kinds of businesses that used to be able to thrive in a downtown, toy stores, children's clothing stores, bookstores, and all the modern commerce has simply taken a lot of that away. So lots of towns are trying to find, what can we draw people in? Parking is a big part of that. People want to be able to park very close to the businesses that they want to visit. And so I know we have a downtown committee that's in process of thinking about these things. I think there's a lot of smart ideas out there. On the Industrial Development Commission, we talked about a lot of ideas. So working with some of the local colleges, with Wheaton and Stonehill, to try to get students to come to the downtown. There are food truck ideas about, we have some open spaces down there. You could have a food truck festival that brings people downtown. Better, the train station, getting people to, when they go to the Tweeter Center, the Comcast Center, for concerts, how can we get them to leave there and come to our downtown, visit our restaurants, shop in our shops? So there are a lot of innovative things happening. A lot of this is a matter of the careful planning that we have been doing. We have a strategic plan that we engaged in 5 years ago. This talked a lot about that, so these are not sort of new problems that we didn't see coming. We've set in motion some process to try to come up with solutions, and then now it's a matter of choosing the best ones and executing. There are no magic solutions to this. This is just this is about hard work. It's about collaborating and working with people and then moving forward.
Olivier?
Well, downtown's been an issue, as you say, for quite a long time. I applaud the recent efforts that have been, put forth to engage the community, the creation of a downtown committee, the IDC working with the downtown. I think what we need to do, though, too, is to make sure we actually take to heart the information that we get back. I mean, I had the pleasure of serving on the Failsfield Property Committee when we as a board commissioned that to say, what do you want to see there? And the committee met, the committee came up with a recommendation, and we stalled. I'm sorry to say, it wasn't, we could have done, I think, a better job in follow-through with you had the opportunity of residents getting, who were ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work and fundraise and actually do the work to get the thing to happen. And we I think, missed an opportunity in that regard. So what we need to do is to make sure we actually listen to the people who are there, who are the business owners, who are the residents in the area. There are economic realities that affect not just Mansfield, but all around. We're not going to be able to circumvent that, but maybe we can actually, look at, specifically take a good hard look at the zoning and figure out, is there anything that we could do if we changed things a little bit differently? Would that allow for more investment? Because at the end of the day, you're talking about private ownership and trying to get, private entities to do something with their property that's going to benefit everybody.
Great. Alan?
The downtown isn't evil, but it's also not in total decay. We have like 3 or 4 vacancies along the stretch. What it is, it's evolving to the market of today. And as they touched upon, everyone's getting beat up with e-commerce and other choices. The downtown, I think, would benefit greatly if we could push the connectivity of it. Our core, I commented in other forums that our core is extremely walkable. And if we can get people to put their car somewhere and use those good old feet to get to the businesses, it'll be great. One of our things about our downtown right now is that it really seems to have evolved into the 6 p.m. after kind of a downtown. The restaurants, and if you go down at 6 o'clock on certain nights, you'll see the cluster of parking up on that end of the town. One of the development issues I'd like to see, we've put a lot of residential in, and that's great because they have the core at their disposal. It would be awesome if we could find some multi-use development down the road that goes for a business in the upper floors as opposed to residences. That's how downtowns used to be. The law office or a dentist office on the 2nd floor of a storefront. And the great thing about storefronts is they're flexible. There are storefronts downtown right now that when I moved here 24 years ago was a pizza place, and now I want to say it's a tax place or a nail salon. So the storefronts have a great way to evolve, and I'd like to see we, as a town, encourage people to be brave and open a business here, and hopefully encourage the community through volunteer works, maybe a BID, to help reinvigorate the core.
Great. Thanks, Alan. Neil?
Yes. I remember the consultant who was hired a few years ago, Dr. Mullen, saying that downtown Mansfield is the most studied downtown in all of Massachusetts. And I went to the meetings, and someone brought a study from 1982 that outlined the exact same problems we're talking about today. So I think it's time for some action and enough study. A couple of things we can do in the short term. This is an idea that Matt Donnelly has brought up, and I agree with, is the idea of pop-up stores. So, it's kind of an experiment where you get someone to sponsor, like a bank or an insurance broker or something like that, a small business to come in and see if it'll work in downtown Mansfield. Because a lot of people don't want to make the big investment and then 6 months later close down and lose a lot of money. The other idea that's been talked a lot about is the development of a cultural district. So if we can get state recognition as a cultural district, we've got Mansfield Music and Arts Society, we've got the Black Doll Museum, we've got a few other, we've got the historical mural, things like that. We can make a case, and that opens us up for some grants and some funding to make some improvements in downtown. Also, we need to market the downtown as a destination. I wrote a column about this 6 years ago in the Mansfield News. And what happens, what succeeds in a lot of small towns is having a common theme. So, we want to be the restaurant capital of Bristol County. We want to be, well, we may already be the hair salon capital of Bristol County and the nail salon. So, what can we do to build on that? And also, when it comes to economic development, we've kind of winged it for so long. And I've been to the Downtown Business Association meetings, and 5 people show up month after month, really like 2 or 3 businesses. And the town is not involved. So the town, really needs to be part of this, the town government and the selectmen. Reaching out to successful businesses in neighboring towns and saying, hey, you've got a successful cafe in Easton. Why don't you open up a second branch in Mansfield? Am I out of time? Finally, the bike path park. Just get that done.
Nice. Thank you.
All right.
Steve?
Yep, okay. Glasses here.
Good segue, too.
Yep. Economic development. Stronger economic development efforts are widely being touted by Mansfield officials and committees as a cure-all or magic bullet to budget and tax woes. There is great conversation around hiring an economic development director for the town to focus on this full-time. What exactly does that mean to you, and what ideas do you have that will spur economic development in Mansfield? And I think we've probably heard some of the ideas already, but an economic development director, I guess, is kind of the crux of this question.
I'm open to the idea of an economic development director. My concern is that, you know, we seem to have a habit of hiring full-time employees, and in lots of instances, that is something that, you know, is necessary to provide services. If you're hiring a police officer, you're hiring a firefighter, you're hiring a teacher, you know, these are things that you have to do. The role of an economic development officer, something along those lines, is something that you can directly tie to a cost-benefit analysis, and you can try and you can evaluate what's your expected return on hiring somebody for that role. I'd be open to it, but my concern also would be, have we explored all of the options? Can we get that same sort of service by, you know, putting out an RFP to a company who does that, or individuals who do that? Can we tie a compensation for something like that to receivables that we actually get back? Because when you get right down to it, you know, that's a position the main focus of which would be to increase revenue to the town. Yes, there's the added benefit of, you know, bringing jobs to the area. That's great for the people who get them. But bottom line, an economic development director is somebody who we expect to bring revenue in. So I want to make sure that we explored all of the options in that regard before we pull the trigger on something like that.
I'm actually on record of supporting the idea, because it is a good idea. And it would also be great if we could streamline our conservation planning and building codes, and have that developer also escort as an ambassador through that gauntlet. Problem is our revenues, our money. Can we pay for one? And that's why I think this election is so important, because I think the immediate step we can take is this should be the #1 criteria on our new town manager search. And that's something the winner of this election could be involved in. The next town manager absolutely positively should have some chops when it comes to economic development.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. If there's a more cost-effective way to do it than hiring a full-time person, such as getting a town manager, he or she that has experience in economic development, that would be a great thing. And the town government as a whole, I think, needs to be an ambassador to the business community. You know, you go to the town website. If I was a prospective business owner looking to locate here, I wouldn't know where to start. I don't see anything on the town website really touting all the great advantages we have, such as our location, the commuter rail, a pretty good downtown that could be a lot better. So those are some easy things. And even a single point of contact. You know, I've heard of other towns such as Westboro, where the town manager is the guy you call when you want to locate there. And he calls a meeting with all the town department heads, and sits down with that business owner and, you know, guides them through. I had breakfast the other day with this chief operating officer of the new bio incubator that just opened here on Francis Ave. And he told us about his experiences dealing with the town, getting that off the ground. He expressed a lot of frustrations. You know, said nobody ever really reached out to him. You know, it was all him kind of reaching out to them. And he also mentioned the fact that he wished we had a nicer downtown for business meetings and things like that. And, you know, so I think the combination of those things, you know, would help spur some economic development here.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what's been said. So the Industrial Development Commission that you, as you mentioned in the intro, I serve on, we've been actually the ones debating this since our inception. It was sort of our idea to pursue the idea of an economic development director in Mansfield. One of the things we did is actually each member of the Industrial Development Commission took a different town and went out and interviewed the town manager in different towns that have an economic development director to find out, to do our due diligence and see if they're seeing a return on investment, so to speak, on this, and how they structured it. You know, what kind of experience did this person have? What was their background? Can they cite examples of new businesses that they've actually been able to bring in? So we learned a lot. I would say, as the commission at this point, thinking as much as has been said, let's see who the next town manager is. If the next town manager is someone who not only has experience in economic development, but also has a real passion for it, then it may be that we won't need to fill that position with a full-time person. So that remains to be seen. You know, a really important part of all this, though, is it someone who can really devote themselves to it. And one of the things I think we're fortunate here in Mansfield is that we are in a pretty good place. We have a lot of really great leaders. Our school committee, our FinCom, our leaders at police and fire are all people who don't need to be micromanaged by a town manager. So you are in a situation where a town manager could devote a lot of their attention and resources to economic development.
Great. All right. Take the next one. Okay. So the next question is about the Xfinity Center. The Xfinity Center is one of Mansfield's largest economic revenue generators. In 2017, Xfinity contributed about $500,000 in direct visitor spending in Mansfield, paid $600,000 on police and fire detail, and will pay over $250,000 in taxes in the coming year. Yet despite new management improving security and working on traffic plans with the town, their license has been a point of contention in recent years. As a selectman who would be granting Xfinity's license to operate each year, do you see Xfinity as an asset to Mansfield, or do you feel that public officials should be managing this private business more? I think that's...
Actually, I think the Xfinity is a great example of how there's a little bit of hypocrisy with the town and how we look at businesses. They are so important to us, yet we really want them to just come, get on the highway, and get out. We don't want them to go downtown to our restaurants. Why? As far as trying to run a private business or interfering more, I think there seems to be a lot of cooperation between them. A great example of that is how they addressed how the various driving apps started pouring people into our little side streets. They've been responsive. I think we can be a team, and I think that's how we can move forward with them. But I think it would be great if we brought, as the town, a little more honesty towards them and recognized how important they are to us. And hopefully that can be a mutual thing. I think the groundwork's there for it, and that was where we should move forward on that. I think there's no reason to threaten their licenses or anything like that. We pour support, and in fact, I guess this past season, the public safety angle of it was very much heightened and worked well. So I think they're a safe and responsible corporate resident.
Great, thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I totally support, I think it's a great asset for the town. When people ask me, where do you live? I say Mansfield, and they say, where's that? I say, it's where the Xfinity Center is. And they say, oh, yeah, yeah. So I think it's, not only does the numbers you cited, I think they employ around hundreds of people over the course of the season. A lot of them high school kids, and a lot of them adults with second jobs. So they're a big part of our economy. They do bring people to downtown and to the convenience stores. And when there's a show on in town, there's a lot more economic activity. So I think we should do everything we can to make sure that they continue to operate and that we don't make it so costly for them that they start having fewer shows, which actually happened this past year. They had 23 shows all season. The previous year they had 36. I recently reached out to the general manager there to kind of ask him what's going on, and he said, we have some expenses, and when we give the bottom line to a performer of what they're going to make by coming to Mansfield, sometimes they choose another venue because it's cheaper. So, and in some cases, some venues go down to only 10 or 15 shows a year, and if that happens, there'll be fewer jobs for people in Mansfield. People will say, well, I can't, that's not enough work for me, so I got to find something else. I'd also like to look if there's opportunities to do more there and have more events. Have a safe trick-or-treating there in the fall. Get that huge parking lot. Make it a huge ice skating rink in the winter. I mean, it's a great piece of property that sits vacant, about 75% of the year. So maybe there's more that we could do to even grow that even more.
Great.
Yeah, I think the relationship between the town leadership and the Xfinity Center has improved a lot in the last year or so, and I think that's important. It is a great resource for us. I think we're managing things pretty well, and we certainly want to keep them. We want to keep them active. We did the general manager of the Xfinity did come in and visit with the IDC because we did talk about this idea of how can we get people to when at the concert venue, get them down into our downtown using our restaurants and things like that, and we're exploring that relationship. I think it'll be fruitful.
Great.
Well, I wholeheartedly support I completely recognize the benefits that come to the town, but unlike my colleagues, I actually served on the licensing committee, and I've been there and seen the negotiations that happen to get the license to happen. It's, every year it's a, I wouldn't say contentious, I would say that it's a balancing of the interests. You've got, a business that needs to be profitable and to keep costs down. And on the other hand, you've got, concerns for the safety and traffic and, the other issues that, for the most part, generally stay under the radar, but when they go above the radar, they go above the radar big time. So what you really need to do is just to make sure you find that balance. And I think over the, Jeff Mann has been there for a couple of years now, and I remember when he came on, there was, you had, new people on the town side, you had new people on the Xfinity Center side. I think things have, as my colleagues here have said, have improved tremendously. Progress is definitely being made over there. But again, it's really comes down to a balance of making sure that, the communication is there, and that everybody's interests are looked out for. Yes, absolutely, they employ a lot of people. There's a lot of revenue. There's a lot of business that comes to the town. There's also expenses and concerns. So when we get the call, that the music's too loud, they've been responsive. They've dealt with that. When there are other concerns, again, I wasn't on the board when Waze decided to route everybody through traffic through residential areas, but it was a great example of how they came together fairly quickly and came up with a solution to deal with that. So yeah, it's a give and take, but it definitely recognized their benefits to the town as well.
Great, thank you. We have one last question. Mind if I take that, Dave? All right, good. Everybody can relax now. So community activity. So we just want to hear a little bit more about you. So we have one person that has served on the Board of Selectmen before, but for everyone, stepping into this position will require you to make several key decisions. I know, Alan, you alluded to that upon your arrival, including the hiring of a town manager, which is going to be first up. Essentially, you'll be hitting the ground running. What other local committees or groups or organizations might we know you from, and some of the work that you've done or would like to brag a little bit about? And be specific maybe a little bit and tell us about some local experience or work that you've done so that will set you up for success and have you ready to hit the ground running on day one. Neil.
Okay, well, some of this is in my closing remarks, and I'm going to repeat myself.
You can be shorter. You don't have to take the whole time.
Okay. I think I'm best known for launching the Great American Cleanup of Mansfield in 2008, and then recruiting a team of people to launch Keep Mansfield Beautiful in 2008 as well. So that's really what I've been working on for the past 10 years. That some people kind of view us as the cleanup guys, but it's a lot more than that. We do education in the schools about recycling and environmental stewardship. We do the Adopt a Spot program around town. We do the flower barrels on Main Street, new recycling bins at all the town buildings, at the schools, park benches, signs for the commons. I mean, you add it all up, and it's more than $300,000 over the last 10 years in grants, volunteer labor, and business donations. And there's an economic component to that as well. By focusing a lot of our energy on the downtown, we've tried to make it a more attractive place for people to visit, for someone to open a store. We still struggle, frankly, with some of the business owners to do basic maintenance in front of their own buildings. Curb Appeal 101. So that's an ongoing challenge, but so that's been my number one thing. And then I took that model and saw how well it worked here in Mansfield and launched Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, which is a statewide nonprofit organization that you mentioned earlier in my bio. So we're trying to replicate this model and grow it across the state. So we'd like to see 351, Keep East. We have Keep Easton Beautiful. There's Keep North Attleboro Beautiful. Walpole's getting off the ground. Natick just joined, so it's spreading, and that's been my primary focus in town for the past 10 years.
Great. David?
Thank you. So I'd love to brag about the Industrial Development Commission. I've brought it up a bunch of times already. I also, when I first moved to town, served on the Mansfield Historical Commission, in part because I really wanted to learn a lot of the history of Mansfield and understand a lot about that. So you meet a lot of great people, you learn a lot of the history of Mansfield and something like that. The Industrial Development Commission has been really important because it's so much about all these very issues that we're talking about. I mean, we're the ones who started the conversation about the Economic Development Director. Also serve on the local hospital sturdy memorial, as Kara mentioned, on their Finance and Operations Committee. And I'll use that as a segue to talk a little bit about the high cost of health insurance. And that's sort of my background as an attorney who's worked in the areas of health policy and health law, and also serving on this hospital finance and operations committee, I have a lot of background in this, and I know the Board of Selectmen has initiated a process to review, to look at the health insurance options. So that's something I think I can be very helpful in. The most fun thing I get to do actually is be an attorney coach for the mock trial team here in the Mansfield High School and work with these kids. And this year they have this really fascinating case involving an insurance payout and whether someone was committed suicide or was murdered or it was an accident. It's a very well structured case. You'd love it. You should. I'll send you the case file.
Great, Olivia?
I guess you could say that, volunteering service to Mansfield's sort of in my DNA. We moved down here in 1993 and I was in school at the time, but by 1997 I was newly minted attorney looking to get involved with the town. And like I said earlier, I've been volunteering for Mansfield I'm in my 20th year doing that now. I started on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I was on the Housing Authority for a while. I recently was asked to step back in there because they had a vacancy, so I'm on there again. The Planning Board, I served for quite a while before I got elected to the Board of Selectmen. Spent 6 years on the Board of Selectmen. I'm with the Board of Registrars of Voters now. Currently volunteering with Mansfield Emergency Management. And to the other question of being able to hit the ground running, this is a special election. This is not your typical calendar where when we have an election in May, or if you're a new selectman, the budget negotiations are behind you. The town meeting has just happened and it's approved that, and you're going into a summer session where you've got the opportunity to have a learning curve. We've got the budget in front of us right now. We've got the search for a town manager, and with the form of government that we have in Mansfield, we have a strong manager position, which means the person that goes into that role really has the opportunity to make or break all the progress that we've made over the past couple of years. So it's critical that we find the right person for that role. I've been there. I can hit the ground running from day one. So I'm hoping that the voters send me back.
Great. Alan?
Well, unfortunately, I have the thinnest volunteer resume. I spent brief moments when I first came to town on the Historical Commission. But no disrespect to everyone else's accomplishment. This election is a special election, and I view it as a train heading into the next annual town meeting. And that's one of the reasons my big concerns is the state of our democracy in this town. We can't have less than 500 people passing $94+ million budgets. We also can't abdicate our responsibility for certain policies. A big one that is the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now in a lot of municipalities is the fallout from the Question 4 ballot question. We're currently sitting under a moratorium on the marijuana law. No one seems to want to talk about it. The moratorium was poorly implemented, written. We need to move on that area. And I think whoever wins this election should look at this as, what can you do to be part of 5 people that actually brings some real democracy come April for the next town meeting. That's where we got to go, and we got to be in this together. And that's one of the reasons my website's called Mansfield United.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Back to you.
Back to me. I'm just learning so much. I have to say just one quick thing before we go into your each candidate's 2-minute. I'm just thrilled that we have 4 such accomplished and well-educated, well-spoken candidates for
Yes,
selectmen.
4 great candidates.
I have to say that. It's going to be a tough vote, but I hope everybody gets out there and votes on November 14th. I think it's going to be really important. And I appreciate you guys putting yourselves out there because it's a tough job. So that being said, if you don't mind, we'll shake it up a little bit. Alan, would you like to start?
Sure.
Okay.
I want to thank the other candidates that came out, because just like she just touched on, this is so important, and it's fantastic that people are willing to step up and get the discussions out there. If we don't talk about these things, we're not going to be the kind of town we all want to live in. So basically I do. I hope people come up. I don't care if I lose by 1,000 votes or win by 1. I want us to have great turnout on November 14th. I want that to be the fuse being lit on something great for this town. The only thing I'm going to say is, if you go to my website, mansfieldunited.com, you'll see more about me, more about the positions I've taken on a number of points. And That's where I live and die, right there. That's my offering. Thank you, and thank you for hosting this very important thing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Olivier?
Going this way? Okay. Well, as several of my colleagues already mentioned, you sort of stole the thunder with that last question, but, it is, sort of thinking back, it is sort of fitting that this is the special election to fill the seat that was once held by George Dentino. I served with him for 6 years, and I, didn't see eye to eye with him on everything. But one thing I admired about him was that, no matter what the issue is, no matter what the proposal was, he'd always ask what the cost was, and he was a budget hawk in that regard. And it sort of echoes what my concern is. I know that we need to make sure that we keep Mansfield affordable for everybody at all stages of their careers, their lives. We talk about a $400 hit in property taxes. I spoke recently with a young professional, former Mansfield resident, just starting out on his own, bought his first home. Well, it turns out he got approved for a mortgage, but his mortgage lender said that he was approved for less if he bought in Mansfield. And the specific reason cited for that was the uncertainty of, are you going to keep having $400 increases in your taxes? Because that's going to affect your debt to income ratio, and that's going to be a problem going forward, perhaps. So he is a new homeowner, not in Mansfield. I've spoken with folks who are downsizing. The kids are off to college. They don't need the home anymore. They're looking at apartments. They're looking broader than Mansfield. So if we're not able to keep our kids who may be interested in staying in Mansfield here, if we lose people who've contributed over the course of their careers because they've moved out of Mansfield because they're downsizing, that's a concern, that's a loss for all of us. So we obviously can't affect economics, market forces, but we really need to look at balancing industrial and commercial investment to lessen the burden. We need to make sure we look at zoning, make sure that there's, if somebody wants to build small units that would be affordable for somebody just starting out or for downsizers, that's allowable under the zoning. So, and again, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I've got the experience, I've got the commitment. I ask for your vote November 14th. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I want to thank the Tri-Town Chamber for hosting this, and both of you for moderating and for asking really great questions. I am excited about helping Mansfield on the Board of Selectmen. I got into this in large part because I do think that we face a lot of problems in terms of the economic conditions. Main streets and suburban business parks like that are, have a questionable future if we don't plan for it. I also think that we're in a really good place in Mansfield in a lot of ways. We have strong town leadership. A lot of the leaders in Mansfield are actually supporting my candidacy because they know that we can work together. And it's that kind of collaboration and leadership that I think people are looking for. We have good department heads. We have good people leading our various committees, our school committee and our finance committee. These are all folks that I've spoken to, and I know that they know that once we sit down and roll up our sleeves, we can solve a lot of these problems. But it really is about collaboration and working together, and not kind of taking the attitude that, well, I'm the only one who can solve these problems. I'm going to come in with all my own solutions. And this is a collaborative process. The Board of Selectmen is 5 members, and you really have to view it as a process like that. So it's exciting. I think I have some really good ideas about how we can address health insurance costs here in Mansfield. And I think the future is bright. And I look forward to your vote on November 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you also for hosting this forum. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen for really one simple reason, which is, I love the town of Mansfield. And I want to do everything I can to improve the quality of life here. And I think I've demonstrated that love over the past 10 years in my work with Keep Mansfield Beautiful. I won't repeat some of the points I made earlier, but I do, when I ask people, when people ask me, why should I vote for you for Board of Selectmen? I say, because I have a track record of getting things done here in Mansfield. And with working with a lot of the committee members you mentioned, town government, the schools, community groups, and individual volunteers. Going back to 2007, I saw a problem with the litter and trash we had in town, so I took action. I saw that our downtown was a little bit run down, and I took action. So I'm an action-oriented person who likes to reach out, be proactive, and get things done. And I think my track record with creating organizations demonstrates that. I also want to take a moment and thank all the candidates here, as well as the existing board members, the school committee, all the other committees, finance committee, and also the late George Dentino, for being willing to serve the town of Mansfield. I think sometimes it gets lost in sometimes when things get hostile or whatever, people lose sight of the fact that everyone is volunteer here, or would be volunteer. So I think that's something important to keep in mind. And if you vote for me as selectman, I don't profess to come in here with all the answers and wave a magic wand. I have an ability to work well with others, collaborate with the existing board, the school committee, other committees, while also adding an independent voice and creative ideas to the board, which is something I think that George brought, and we need that going forward. I will listen to all sides of every issue and try to make independent judgment, bring a proactive approach and a can-do attitude. I believe I have the experience, the temperament, and the track record to make me your next selectman. So I ask you to mark your calendar for November 14th and remember to vote, and please vote for Neil Ryan, and together let's get things done here in Mansfield. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This has been fabulous. I appreciate your time. Thank you to our chamber members, Danielle and Dave. Some great questions. And if there's anything I can say to Mansfield is you have a tough choice here. You have some great candidates, but you just got to get out there and vote on November 14th. Thank you very much.